Oh, Lordy, I just did that again. Friends, I must apologize. Steve Yulberg for Dulcimer Crossing. This is 2222. This is our Wednesday live stream, and I'm having some issues. I'm going to have to trim this video so that it starts again here. Third time is a charm. What we're looking at is confusion about modes. How do we use them? I'm teaching a 6-week class on practical music theory right now, and I've had students asking me about this. This was our particular focus this week, was what are modes? How does music use them? How does our instrument use them? I've got a mountain dulcimer here that has no extra frets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, no 6.5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. And it's laid out in a particular pattern of long, long, short, long, long, short, long, 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 short, long, long, short, long, 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 short. That means I have a diatonic scale. There are so many different ways. When Pythagoras and others were first investigating the physics of strings and stretching one string over two vibrating or two bridges or ends, beginning and ending of where the string vibrates. In our dulcimer, this is a nut and a bridge. They were measuring what happens when I'm at halfway up from the middle. I get an octave. They measured the frequency as best they could. They measured the distance, and they started dividing things up so it made sense to their ears. In the Western world, the way it makes sense to our ears is that there are 7 particular, out of all the possible tones, there are 7 specific pitches that are what we form our music on. Those things are that, which 7 are the names of the modes. So I have a do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do when I go from the 3rd to the 10th fret. If I do the same space of going from following 7, start at 4 and go up 7, 4 plus 7 is 11. Oh, a different interval there. Okay, that's interesting. And that one, that's a different kind of sound. That one is called the Dorian mode. The first one is called the Aeolian mode, and it sounds like the major scale that we're used to. And if I start at the 5th fret, that's the Phrygian mode. That sounds even stranger. If I start at 6, that's the Lydian mode, which is the kind of thing they always used in Star Trek when they went to a future land where everybody dressed in togas and had laurel leaves and was an idealized version of our Western world past. Now, if I start at 7 and go up, one weird note, which is the same as going from 0 to 7. If I start at 1, I add 7 going to 8. And if I start at 2 and go to 9, that was a minor one. In the United States, that's a weird mode. In a lot of Europe, that's a weird mode. And in some places in Europe, that's the preferred mode. The whole point of this is that we have a system that uses 7 tones to produce the songs we sing. Now, if you studied music in college, you probably focused on modes on Tuesday of your sophomore year. I mean, it's considered as important, and because you're trying to get to the real music, because after a while, instead of taking 7 tones like this, people started adding frets in between all of where the frets were, so they were evenly spaced, and you have a chromatic instrument. They take the 5 black keys of the piano and stick them into the 7 white keys, and you come up with a 12-tone scale. But the truth is, songs don't use all 12 tones. Very, very few do that. Most use part of them. So the songs that use 7 tones, for example, that one uses all 7 steps of the Aeolian scale. Now, if I was to start that in a different place and use 7 steps, I'm still going to use a scale of 7. That doesn't quite sound the same, does it? There's a weird note right there. I could start it here at 9. I have a piano student right now who is she's 5, and one of the things she's discovering is this thing of I can start and do the same number of notes in the right order, but it doesn't sound right because I have to start in the right place. It's the same thing that's happening on a dulcimer. Now, I want to do the same thing on the hammered dulcimer, so let's turn our attention over there. On the hammered dulcimer, we're blessed now, thanks to Sam Rosetta, to have these marks. Your instrument might have dark marks every 4, but the point is you have one color and then 2 that are not the same, and then the same whatever it was that started, and 2 that are not the same color, 2 that are not the same color, 2 that are not the same. So it has this, on the mountain dulcimer it's long and short frets. Here, this is a whole step, that's a whole step, that's a half step. So from a mark to an unmarked is always a whole step, unmarked to unmarked is always a whole step, unmarked to a mark is always a half step. Mark to a mark on the other side, if I play in a box, on the other side of where I started, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. So in that way, this is laid out in this 4 string course pattern the same way as a mountain dulcimer. In order for me to play the major scale, I start on a marked chord, and I always will get, when I play in that box, I will always get a major scale anywhere I start in here. One difference between the hammered dulcimer and the mountain dulcimer is I have a lot of boxes where I can get that major scale. On the mountain dulcimer that has no extra frets, there's only one place I can get that major scale on the melody string, and that's if I start at the 3rd fret and go to the 10th fret. So in order to have it sound in a different pitch, I have to retune something. That's what happens on the mountain dulcimer. Now, on the hammered dulcimer, this is like going from 3 to 10 on the mountain dulcimer. If I start one above a mark and do the same box pattern, that's like going 4 to 11 on a mountain dulcimer. Starting one below a mark and doing the same pattern, that's like going from 5 to 12. I'm getting all the different modes on here similar to how I do it on the mountain dulcimer. Now, here's where the confusion entered in. In the old days, there was no standard pitch for the dulcimer. I like to say, children, in the prehistoric times, dulcimers roamed the land as free-range critters. And you tuned them however you wanted to tune them. I've talked about this before, but I'll demonstrate it now. When you built your instrument, I got a box. How am I going to make, what am I going to decide to tune the strings to? One method was hooing into the hole, which is where I take the dulcimer and I go la 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 la, and there's a certain pitch at which the whole instrument starts to vibrate, and that's the pitch I would tune my bass string to. La 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 la. Oh, that's the one. La. Uh-oh. This instrument is not tuned to that pitch. Why would it be tuned to something other than that pitch? This is where the history lesson comes in. when I tune it so that it vibrates so it sounds the best by itself, then I would, by relative pitch, change my other strings to match so I could play the songs I wanted to play. But what if my voice doesn't match where the instrument is, and I have one instrument? I'm going to retune the instrument so that my voice can sing. There were no standard choices of what the tunings should be by pitch. This is one of the first books that I received, or that I bought. I didn't just receive it. It's by Lynn McSpadden, 4 and 20, from McSpadden Dulcimers in Mountain View, Arkansas. This was published, let's go see. Let's see, it says 1977. So 3 years before I started playing, before I built mine and started playing my Dulcimer. As I look in the table of contents, see if we can get that up high enough, they're listing songs by the mode that the melody lives in. Because what they were doing, then when I go and I get to, let's get beyond the instruction material. Hush Little Baby. This one says Aeolian at the top. It doesn't tell me how to tune my Dulcimer. It just gives me notes up here. It assumes that I'm going to be doing things related to C, but it's going to be in the Aeolian mode of C, which means, if you'll notice, well, this one's a finger-picking way, so it's a little harder to see where the melody is in that one. Here we go. Here's Auralie. 0, 3, 2, 3, 4, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 0, 0, 3, 2, 3, 4, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3. I've got the fret numbers above. I've got the notes here. It's telling me C, but there's no tablature. It's assuming that I'm playing in a drone style, and it's saying the tuning is Aeolian. Now, what that means is, and this is where I think the confusion has come in, when I want to tune my Dulcimer so that my drones line up, I've got to tune them so that whatever I play at the 3rd fret, the bass string is the octave of that. The middle string is the 5th of that. To get the 5th on the bass string now, at the 4th fret of the bass string, I get the middle string. So that's a 1-5 relationship. The twinkle, twinkle, little star. That's a 5th interval. Now, from there, I get the 3rd fret. Because I've tuned that way, my melody string at the 3rd fret is now playing the same note as the bass string. And I've got a 1-5 drone situation going on. Let's get a nice old time pick here. And when I play from 3 to 10, my drones line up perfectly. And it sounds good. Now, if I want to play from 4 to 11 with the drones as they are right now, let's see what happens. I sound unfinished, don't I? Because I just played a Dorian of scale that started on E, but the drones were lined up to back up something playing in D. So that's why people would retune their instruments. On the hammered dulcimer, I'd go to a different box. I don't have every single box available to me, but I have a lot of boxes available to me on the hammered dulcimer. Here, I'm going to retune to a 1, 5, and then the melody strings are going to be a 4. Now when I start at the 4th fret, I've got a D at the 4th fret, I've got an A in the middle, I've got a D on the bottom. So now my drones line up when I play in the Dorian mode. Now say I want to play in the Mixolydian mode, which is from 0 to 7. That's not working. Maybe I'm thinking I should play in the Aeolian mode, which starts at the 1st fret. That's not working. Now, why is this part important? Originally, there were no frets that went all the way across all the fretboard. They only went under the melody string or strings. So when I played, wherever I started was going to be the scale I'd use, and the other things would be the drones. So I'm going to have to retune in order for my drones to line up with my melody. If I want to play that 1 to 8 scale, I'm going to have to play the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, flat 7. I'm going to play at the 6th fret. Everything lines up now, and the drones I have are supporting this melody, which is an Aeolian melody. If I play it just on the melody string, that's from 1 to 8, that's the only melody I can come up with. If I want a Mixolydian melody, I have to tune it so it matches either the 7th fret on the bass string or the 3rd fret in the middle. So now I need a Mixolydian tune. So I have to have that note in order to play Red-Haired Boy because it's a Mixolydian tune. Now, here's where the confusion really comes in. These tunings got associated, like I showed here, Orally was Ionian. Let's go find a different one. This one says Scarborough Fair is a Dorian tune. I was trying to understand it, and I thought it was an Aeolian tune, and it turns out it's not an Aeolian tune. I really need, where this has got a natural sign right there, I really need that note. But in a dulcimer, the only way to get that note is to start at the 4th fret and play to 11, and that's one that shows up without any problem. Now, Lord Lovell, they say tune to an Aeolian tuning, and they were not key specific. Now, I've been doing this all in relation to D because I live after the end of the 1980s. Sometime in the 80s, there was apparently a meeting where everybody got together and said, we're going to add a 6.5 fret to our instrument. So that went in here. We're going to tune with our bass string to D, and we're going to play more commonly in the tuning of DAD. Now, that I wasn't party to that meeting, and I didn't get the memo. So I kept tuning it to whatever I wanted to. I kept, I'd retune so that my voice would work, or I would do the hooing in the hole and change it. It wasn't till books started coming out in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, that people started always using D for everything. Now, David Schnaufer had something to do with the choosing D and the DAD tuning. He was taking advantage of the fact that a 6.5 fret had already been added to his instruments. I think he might have requested it. Howie Mitchell is credited with the putting it there. But when he did that, and we had frets that were going all the way across the instrument, starting in the 40s or so, it became possible to play. I could play all the modes on all the strings all the time, and it made it possible to play chords, which originally it wasn't possible to do. But people kept hanging on to mode names for tunings. So then there was a whole series of workshops called Mode is Not a Tuning. And playing multimodal tunes on a Dulcimer tuned DAD, for example. I can play other tunes when it's tuned to one set of pitches just by where I start and how I find the notes that go along with that. So the confusion about the modes has been, we've got an older way of talking about it because of the older way the instrument was built, innovations that added to the instrument that gave us new possibilities and stirred up the mud and made a lot of confusion. So when someone says, I thought I was tuned to Aeolian, that means I can only play that way. Or I'm in Mixolydian right now. Let me go to Aeolian, for example. If I'm droning, I'm only going to have Aeolian available to me. If I go to if I play the melody string by itself, I can still play the major scale I wanted to play. I can play the Dorian version at minor scale. I can play Mixolydian. And because there are frets everywhere, if I play single string, I can play all the modes on all the strings all the time. However, I might not easily find notes to go along with it because of the way it's tuned. So, in conclusion, and I know that we had difficulty getting started with this one, and I'm sorry about that today. I'll fix it for the replay. When we talk about modes, we're talking about scales, and songs live in scales. So the way I use the modal way of doing things is, if I'm trying to play a song and I am trying to figure it out, I'll first, does it have a major third in it, or does it have a minor third in it? That's going to put me, I'm either starting at 3 or 4, or 0 or 1. If it's a major third, I'm going to start at 3 or 0. If it's a minor third, I'm going to start at 1, or I'm going to start at 4. And that's how I'm going to make my first decisions about where am I going to look to play this particular tune. The mode is helpful for figuring out where the melody lies. And it's not the same as saying, what key are we in? And that's a whole nother conversation. But keys generally belong to locks in your car and your house, and chromatic music, not in the modal world of the dulcimer music. I may sometimes play things that relate to a particular key, but if somebody says, what song is this in, or what key is this in, and I say it's Dorian of E, that's much more descriptive than if I say E minor, because Dorian of E is going to have a special note, that one. So I'm not just in E minor, I'm in Dorian of E because I need that special note. I could try the other minor one and see what happens. That was the wrong note. So it's like being in Alaska and saying it snowed last night, and everybody wants to know, was it icy snow? Was it sleet? Was it pebbly? Was it soft and downy? Was it wet? Was it dry? They have so many words for snow because it's not just enough to know that it's white and it fell down. Or blew down. They need, the words they have are more descriptive, and the modes are more descriptive of what we need in order to play the song. Okay, let me see if I can see comments here, if they're connected with what we're questions. Well, it is time for me to end, and I will see you next week.